It's time to set the record queer.
Kill the mountain goat!
Welcome to Setting the Record Queer, a podcast where queer people talk about the pursuits and communities they love. This is episode 8, Improv and Sketch Comedy. My name's Alexis, my pronouns are it, its, and she, her, and I'm one of your hosts.
My name's Kaylee, my pronouns are she, her, and Alexis, I have done nothing since the last recording but play Pokemon and also do a bunch of other responsible stuff, but that's not fun.
Yeah, honestly, Kaylee and I haven't fought over the Nintendo Switch this much since launch weekend with Breath of the Wild. We have been doing nothing but playing Pokemon.
I caught a Psyduck and it's now been featured on www.kotaku.co.uk.
Nice. How does it feel that your shiny Psyduck is more famous than you?
It really is more famous than me. I'm glad that my son is succeeding.
I'm proud of him. Yeah, but this with Pokemon Let's Go Eevee is the first Pokemon game I've ever played. I know. How have you spent your entire life without playing a Pokemon game? I don't know. I just never did. I've never been much for RPGs. But honestly, watching Kaylee play the game, it was too cute. Eevee is just too adorable, and I was like, okay, I gotta try this. And then combine that with all of the like beginner-friendly features of Let's Go, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna play this video game. And I'm having a great time. I'm in Lavender Town right now, and I'm a little spooked, but it's okay. I just evolved my Clefairy into a Clefable, and it's a big squishy friend, and it's great. I'm having a good time. Also, 4 hours into my first Pokemon game ever, I found a shiny. Not like after grinding for one, I just found one. It just happened. I saw a Venonat, and I was like, oh, hey, that's a Venonat. I want to catch that. And then we got into the battle, and Kaylee freaked out and was like, oh my god, that's a shiny! And then I caught it. And so now I have a super special bouncing boy with blue eyes. His name's Beat, and I love him because I've been naming all of the Pokemon I get attached to after Mega Man characters.
Speaking of Beat and video games and The World Ends With You and bad transitions, the Power Up With Pride the Power Up With Pride games list released, and both of us are going to be doing a bunch of stuff for that.
Yeah, so Power Up With Pride is a speedrunning charity event that I work for. It happens every 6 months. There's Power Up With Pride, and then coming up is Winter Pride, our kind of secondary event. It's a queer speedrunning marathon, like run by a bunch of queer people, run for the queer speedrunning community. We raise money for a queer charity. This time we're raising money for the Trevor Project again, because they're really, really good. Yeah, Kaylee and I got The World Ends With You in, so that's going to be a lot of fun. What else did I get in? I got another thing in. What was it? Oh, The Girl and the Robot. I'm going to be racing The Girl and the Robot with the other two really good runners, and it's going to be amazing because we do our weekly races every week, and they're almost always close.
I'm going to be playing Jack Bros, which is my signature Virtual Boy game that I speedrun.
I like how you say signature Virtual Boy game, as if like anyone else is competing with you for like whose Virtual Boy game is whose.
I really want them to, though.
But they're not, and you just have to, you gotta accept that.
No, I don't. Also got in a race against one of my other partners, Cassie, with Time Spinner, which, if you haven't played Time Spinner, it's a lot like Castlevania Symphony of the Night, but every character in the game is queer. I am not joking. Go play it.
She's not joking. It's really queer. It's also really adorable. And then we're also going to be, there's some other stuff. But anyways, that's going to be December 6th through 9th at twitch.tv/powerupwithpride. All of those words spelled as you might expect. You should definitely watch. It's a really good marathon. We're working really hard as the staff to like make this one the best event yet. It's going to be a lot of fun and a lot of queer. So I was actually one of the two people who started Power Up With Pride. It was me and Sellying, aka Allie. At the time we were dating, but that's not really important. And just seeing it grow from this like one weekend event where people streamed to their own channels and we raised $1,200 to last Power Up With Pride this summer, we had Twitch front page time and raised $14,000 is kind of like, oh my gosh. Anyways, watch Power Up With Pride. It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, we've talked enough about video games, I think.
Alexis, I need to be honest.
Okay.
All of these jokes that we've told in this opening segment were terrible.
Yeah.
Is there someone who can help tell good jokes?
Well, Kaylee, conveniently, this that we're doing right now is also a terrible joke. Anyways,
Yeah, it's terrible. Who can we
Sorry,
get?
I'm gonna laugh.
on this episode with us, we have someone who's actually funny. We have Christian Borkey, an improv and sketch comedian and comedy producer, and one of my friends from high school. Shoutouts to the early morning lesbian crew. Hi, Christian.
Hi! I'm so happy to be here. Like you two said, my name is Christian Borkey. I use she, her pronouns. And let me tell you, your jokes are valid. If they make you two laugh, then they're funny.
I don't know if that's true, but thank you for the encouragement. We like to go the funny because it's not funny route with our like transitions and jokes because we're not good at coming up with actually funny ones.
That's why you have you on. Please make our podcast funny.
Oh, wow, what pressure. I'll do my best. So, I do comedy. I live in Chicago, so I'm really heavily involved in the Chicago comedy scene. It's very much like a grown adults game, which is spooky because I'm a child. I'm 21. I am literally a toddler. And what I do is a lot of performing and producing. I try writing. I do a lot of music stuff. Really, it's a hodgepodge of whatever you can put out there, you just do. That's the general. Here's me looking at the guide of the things I'm supposed to talk about.
Oh, I mean, you don't worry about that. We will ask you the questions.
Okay, cool.
You're just like, I'm already appreciating that you're diving right in. You are ready to spill this information for us. But anyways, let's maybe act like Kaylee and I are in charge here and know what we're doing.
We do?
We're supposed to, and with the power of editing, it'll seem like we do. So, Christian, why don't you give us your history with comedy and with performance, and conveniently also how we met is in there, I suppose.
Sick. So I started performing in 3rd grade when my parents took me and my 3 brothers, I don't have 4 of them, to a theater camp that was very much like an outdoorsy, like boy camp, and then we did a play at the end. And I liked both of those aspects, and I really loved being on a stage, and I've really been performing ever since. I did a lot of musicals and like theater things, but in 8th grade, I got cast on an improv team at my community theater, and I've been doing improv ever since, which is a long time for someone to be doing improv who's like 21. And then in high school, I kept doing, musicals and stuff, and then I started doing speech and debate, which is competitive acting if you look at it right.
Wow, that's actually really accurate. I'm kind of stunned. Yeah. Okay.
I like to think of myself as both succinct and funny. So I I did competitive acting basically in high school, and once I got to college, I got cast on the DePaul Improv and Sketch Comedy team. It's like an organization here. And then I discovered you can do things in the city and no one tells you to do them. You just do them. So I've just kept performing, producing, writing, singing, I guess, but I'm not a singer, since. And that's kind of my general overview of a history.
Yeah. I'm really impressed that you've been doing this for so long. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess it makes sense with, not only the fact that you're probably the funniest human being I know, but also literally in halfway through high school, to me, you already seemed like a professional.
Oh, that's so sweet.
But
here's me crying on your podcast.
Anyways, let's talk a little bit more about all of the different things that you do. First, let's talk about how about the different ways that you perform and the different kinds of, comedy and stuff that you do. If you can give us a rundown.
Yeah, so a lot of Chicago comedy can be split up into a couple different categories or whatever. You got the professionals who are paid by theaters to either do an improv set with their team or perform a sketch review. That's what Second City does.
What is a sketch review?
It is about an hour-ish long, and it's a bunch of different you can describe them as short plays, but they're funny, and you just do all of them. And they usually have an overlapping theme, but they're all just supposed to be funny and varied or whatever, but it's the same cast doing one cohesive show together, even if it's a bunch of different little sketches. That is not what I do because I don't get paid to do it yet. And that's what the adults kind of do. elsewhere in the city, there are a ton of different like little variety shows that you can do. Each of these like little variety shows have a different theme. And if you're a solo performer, you know, either have a producer see you or you ask a producer who's typically your friend, like, hey, can I do 5 minutes of your show? And typically they'll be like, okay. And then you do 5 minutes of whatever you want on a stage in front of other people, whether that be like music or solo sketch or you and your friend wrote something together. And it's super chill. So as an example, I have a friend named Annie who runs a show called Take It Back, where it's the whole like premise of the show is that it's a variety show where people who have not been cast in typical roles, like people of color or queer people or whatever, sing roles that are supposed to be like for like straight white men and take the roles back.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so my friend...
And I want to see this now.
My friend Leah sang Part of Your World from The Little Mermaid and talked about Asian representation in media. And like that's the whole like niche of the show. That's what it's supposed to be. So she asked me to do something for that show. I was out of town, so I didn't. But, you know, like her saying, Christian, come do the show, I would theoretically like come up with a musical performance or like a sketch or like do a scene from a show that, you know, is from Star Wars. I don't know, you know, and then just do it.
I would love to see Christian perform Star Wars. Oh my God.
Star Wars, but it's just me, no one else.
I a long time ago, I watched one guy do Star Wars. Who did it at like the local playhouse where I'm from. It was kind of incredible, but I would really like to see you do it. I feel like it would be better if it wasn't a just boring white dude.
It'd be much more interesting if I had all the masks and stuff. That'd be so fun. So that's like that little variety show aspect. You can do that. Or the thing that's kind of in between is that people will sometimes run a show that like they have to cast or whatever, but run it like it's a professional show. An example of this is something called Improvisexation that I was in. They like held auditions. I came and I got cast. And the whole premise of the show, we had to like develop characters throughout the rehearsal process that were like really into sex and then do terrible improv that was just like very sexual. That was the whole thing. It's like reclaiming our bodies and being like, we love sex. Here's some bad improv. And that was the whole bit of the show. And it like ran, it's still running. It's in like its third season now. And it won, most of the people who like run the show are Latinx. So it won like it got nominated for some sort of theatrical Latinx award in the city. Yeah, which was super awesome for them.
Yeah, no kidding.
So yeah, that's like the in-between style. I know this is very difficult to explain and like very strange, but that's the best way that I know how to explain it.
You're doing great.
Thank you.
So what's really interesting to me is that it really seems like what you do is kind of tied to the scene of your area.
Mm-hmm.
So is that more out of like necessity, or is that kind of a choice to kind of like, I'm going to take what's here and, you know, get myself into it?
It's a bit of both. I love making friends in the area, people who like don't go to school with me or whatever, and it's super cool to just get to know them, and that's a really good way to get booked, is if you have friends. But also, a good way to put up shows yourself is if you have money. And a lot of people don't have the money to do that. So it's very much out of necessity of us like gathering our resources together, pitching something, like using our group time together because we don't have, you know, however much money it takes to pitch something for a main stage somewhere, you know? Like, for example, Second City, cool institution, I guess, but it's very much founded on we have to make money all the time. And if you want to do a show there, you have to give up a portion of your ticket sales and pay something like up front to be able to put on your show there. And like Second City makes most of the money, and then you're also out like $125 for a show. Like it's a lot of money to do. Or you can have you and your group of friends like split that if you want to put up a show there, or have you and your group of friends do it like at an apartment and then get notoriety before you put it up at Second City. A lot of different avenues of doing things that are, again, more helpful if you have friends and like a community.
All right, so it's about friends. That's wholesome. I like it. So the other thing you mentioned is that in addition to being a performer yourself, you're also a producer.
Yes.
So what does that mean?
Great question. A lot of it has to do with being the person who comes up with the variety show, like Take It Back, or coming up with, or pitching a show to a theater. I have a really good relationship with Under the Gun Theater, John Leadley, shout out. And what comes with that is me saying, hey, John, I would like to do a show that's like, I would like to do a musical that we wrote in 18 days. Can we put it up here? And then getting the people together who want to be in that musical, getting the musicians to play music for that, you know, marketing it, doing all that stuff, and being a point of contact for anyone who's like involved in the show. So I wear the producer hat, and it's very much my favorite thing to do, but relative to other like actual producers in the city, I have little experience. But I've put on like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 shows. And it's really thrilling and exciting and cool to do because it's like logistics and creativity.
Yeah, so what's so fulfilling about being a producer, if you can kind of elaborate on that? Like, it's, it seems like a role with a lot more work and maybe a lot less like glory. So what keeps drawing you back to it?
The first show that I was part of producing, I produced with two of my good friends, Joe and Santiago and Amy Doe. The first show that we produced together was called Middle School Dance. And it was a 10-week-long variety show centered around the themes of middle school and how terrible it was, which was so fun. Each week had like a different theme. It was so cute. Anyway, what's so thrilling and awesome about producing is that the creative vision for the show, which was Jerwin's idea, was to have people talk about things that they haven't talked about and show the middle school experience that hasn't been shown before. A lot of what we get on like TV or even in like popular sketch reviews in the city is a middle school experience of someone who's straight and white and typically a man. So what would it look like if we saw other people's middle school stories? What would it be like if we had, like two queer people singing a song together about puberty? What would it be like if we saw, whatever people want to do? So what was so thrilling was being able to execute this vision and have people coming back every week to see this and talk about it and engage with the content that was going on, and knowing that like this is something that really hasn't been done before in the city. And putting out new voices, I guess, is what I like about producing, is that you get to choose what you want to do and you get to choose whose stories you're telling. And a lot of the time, the people whose stories we're telling are not the ones that I want to hear,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what I like about it.
That's really cool, yeah. So why don't you give us kind of a rundown of some of the projects you've done and what role you had in them?
Cool. So I'm going to circle back to Middle School Dance. I was a producer for that, but also if we had extra time in the show every week, Joe and Amy and I would just do something. What's good about being a performer and a producer is that if you have lost time, we can fill it just by doing stuff ourselves. So that's what I was for that project. For a different thing called Off Broadway, I was also a producer, but a musical director as well, because part of that project was writing that musical that we wrote in 18 days. So I was someone who was like writing the music, developing the story, playing the music during the show, stuff like that. There's been a bunch of shows that I've just been like a performer, like Improvisation. We did like a sketch review recently that I was, in. At Second City, I just graduated from their conservatory or whatever, so I performed in that show. A conservatory is like comedy school. So I graduated from that, was a performer in that show. With my improv team, the 2002 Chicago Bulls, I'm a regular performer because I'm on the team.
What's the story behind the name, the 2002 Chicago Bulls? I need to know.
We were all in a room together trying to come up with a name for our improv team, and then someone said it, and we all went, yeah, that's hilarious. And that's the story.
With a bunch of improv comedians, that's exactly what I was expecting, but it's nice to hear nonetheless. Carry on.
For another improv team, promo code OUCH, I serve as their coach / I don't want to say producer because I don't really book things for them anymore, but at the beginning I was their producer, I guess. And on DePaul Improv and Sketch Comedy as a whole now, I'm very much just a leader who's deciding projects for like the group of 50 of us to do. It's something that anyone could do at any point if they want, but I'm one of the people who's just more seasoned at it. So I'll say, hey, there's this show. Who wants to come to this? Or, hey, who wants to create this show and make this happen? So it's like executive producer of DePaul Improv and Sketch Comedy. Yeah, that's a bit of a rundown. I know I'm forgetting stuff, but that's kind of the thing. In different variety shows, I'm just a performer, but that's like very one-off stuff.
That's a lot. I mean, you make it sound like it's not that much, but you've had your hands in like everything and everywhere, like all these different shows, all these different roles, which I guess I would kind of expect from an improv person to just be able to do literally whatever. But I think it's really cool how you've just done all of this stuff that you'd think, something like improv and sketch comedy, you think is kind of a one level thing. Like, okay, you do the funny on the stage, but there's so much more to it.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool.
There's a lot of people who do treat it as like, let's just be funny on a stage. And typically, I'm not going to say all the time, because sometimes there are people who are just like, let's be funny on a stage, and it's hysterical. But a lot of the people who don't put thought into their comedy are the ones who produce the most problematic stuff. Typically, it's like a group of just like 30-something straight white men who are like, wouldn't it be funny if we did like this horrible sketch on a stage? And then it is, and then it's not funny. So there's a lot of thought and care and workshopping that should go into comedy, because comedy's important.
So it's really almost like you're I guess, fighting comedy with comedy.
Yeah.
Like trying to be funny to influence the collective funny to be better. Yeah?
Yeah, it's very difficult being involved so heavily in a scene that's been predicated on the same type of story being told over and over again for thousands of years, you know? But that's what comedy is. So what a lot of people, at least in my direct comedy circle, refer to it as is alternative comedy or alt comedy, which is on the rise, which is just like wholesome stuff that like is feelings based and thought through rather than I'm on a stage, duh, I'm funny.
Christian Borkey, truly the culmination of 1,000 years of comedy. The world has been waiting for this.
They've been waiting.
The savior, the improv messiah. All right, that's enough religious imagery for one podcast. Kaylee, say something.
I don't think there's an amount of religious imagery that isn't too much for our podcast. But
yeah.
So you've mentioned before kind of other people that you've worked with in terms of doing stuff. And it makes sense because, you know, you can't really have a multiple person act with just one person, but
you'd have to run really fast and be really good at voices.
Real good at voices.
Unless you're the Flash. What sort of larger community is there outside of that?
The community, at least that I've been finding in the city, beyond what's directly in front of me with the Poem, Improv, and Sketch Comedy, which is like a group of 50 kids who want to do like improv, is the group of comedians out there that like support each other and see each other's shows. It's also very much, I know I keep saying the word friendship, but it very much is a community friendship. For example, oh my God, I love these two people so much. One of them is named Devin Middleton, and the other one is named is Jordan Stafford. And Jordan does like art, like, you know, he puts a pen on a page and makes pretty pictures. And he's been doing art on paper for like so long. So his friend Devin Middleton organized a secret GoFundMe to get him an iPad that was like sauced up. And like mostly comedians donated to this guy's like secret GoFundMe to like get his friend an iPad. And he raised the money within like 24 hours and then surprised him at a show with it. It was like so wholesome.
That's so good.
Yeah. So it's really just and I get invited to parties all the time of comedians around the city who are just like chill and a couple years older than me, and I don't know, just friendship. So that's kind of the community that's being fostered here, of just seeing friends, supporting them, thinking they're funny, and then wanting to spend more time with them.
One thing you mentioned earlier that I want to talk a little bit more about in terms of the community is how you mentioned how heavily based around like the city of Chicago it is. Do you think you could elaborate more in particular, like, you know, what's unique about like, say, Chicago comedy? And like what, you know, kind of what's going on with this sort of like regional comedy? Like what kind of things are influenced by where you are?
I wish I could give a brilliant answer about the comedy scenes in like New York or LA or whatever. The truth is, I don't know how it's different from New York or LA because I haven't been there and I haven't seen the shows. What I've heard about New York is that it's giant and it's very difficult to foster such a community because there's so many comedy theaters and there's such an oversaturation of stuff. Whereas in Chicago, it's a bit smaller and there's like a general group of, I'd say like 300 people who like really know each other and really like do these shows and are supporting each other and, I don't know, big in the alt comedy scene. The actual city of Chicago itself, perhaps its Midwestern values are what make the comedy so wholesome. But I'm not going to put a lot of stock in that belief. Don't quote me on that when I'm dead. I think it's just the group of people that happen to be here are the ones who really care and the ones who really want to make something that's worth watching and worth preserving and worth, I don't know, sharing with people. That might be the same in LA or Seattle or whatever, but that's what I find in the city. And the fact that we all live here.
Do you think that sort of idea tends to draw more people in?
Yeah.
Like they see this sort of like community friend scene, and you think that like kind of just makes it grow even more, but still keep maintaining that same environment?
Yeah. The people who want to be involved, like talk to each other or hang out or, you know, like if you're new to it, people that, in my experience, have been very open to meeting new people and new friends. Because I'm still a relatively green face in the scene, you know, I'm not like a seasoned veteran. But if I walk to someone after a show and I'm like, hey, you did really good. This actually happened to me like 2 weeks ago. I walked up to someone and I was like, hey, like, let me buy you a drink. This was so awesome. And then she friended me on Facebook like 2 hours later.
Nice. So that's actually a perfect lead into talking about you. You mentioned like new people. how can a new person get into the scene? What advice you have as someone who's sort of like, stepping up from the beginner into like really trying to get into the scene and like the real deal paid shows and stuff like that? What advice do you have for making those first steps?
To get into the alt comedy scene, the one that's not necessarily professional, it's very much just going to people's shows and supporting them and laughing and having a good time. Because people notice when, you're having a good time and you're just a generally cool presence. And that's really the only way you're going to meet people is if you see what's going on. It's very typical for people to like be fed the story that comedy works in a vacuum and that like someone writes something funny and then suddenly everyone loves them. But if you're not sharing it with people or if you're not supporting other people in what they're doing, your comedy just will not thrive. To get into the professional paid scene, it's very gatekept by the people who have money. Meaning, if you want to be on a Herald team at IO, which is like an official thing, you like work for the theater, you have to complete a year's worth of classes there. And the same thing works at Second City. You have to complete like $2,000 worth of classes before you can even audition to get into the paid stuff, like the touring company or the house companies or the main stage or etc. So I don't quite know how to do that. I just graduated from the comedy school. I just spent oodles amount of money just to be able to audition for something. So there's like a couple of scholarships that are going around the city, especially for people of color at IO. There's like the Dioversity Scholarship or whatever, which like gets you the year's worth of classes all for free. But again, that's something you have to audition for and like hone your skills before you even go into that audition, which is such gatekeeping nonsense, So
do you think that the rise of like, more smaller communal presences and a lot more like, alternatives, queer people of different races, stuff like that. Do you think the rise of that community will eventually sort of shift the balance of like who's in control and who gets to determine what's big?
I think there is a shift happening. I think it's very hopeful to think that if you're in the alternative comedy scene, you think it's kind of happening faster than it is because you're surrounded by these people all the time and you watch your friends succeed and you're like, OMG, like, cool, we're doing this. But if you zoom out from like what's going on within the alternative comedy scene, the process is a lot more glacial than, we would hope for it to be. That said, Second City and IO and they're like the big comedy theaters here. They're putting forward like all these scholarships and these fellowships. There's the Bob Curry Fellowship at Second City, which takes in like 10 or 12 people of color a year. And like, it's like this long, extensive program or whatever. And usually people from that get cast in ETC or main stage stuff, which is cool. But the people who are in charge, the people who like run Second City or the people who run IO are still the same people that have been running it for a long time, despite the fact that they're more woke than they were in the past. It's still, it's all still about money and class, and the intersections of class and comedy aren't really talked about a whole lot in the city because I don't know how to have an intelligent conversation about it, but I just see that it's happening. And until you can fix class problems, you can't really fix the quote-unquote diversity problem at Second City or IO. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So, all right, so the final thing for the segment, what's coming up for you and for the scene? Are there any like shows that people should be looking out for or, auditions or deadlines if someone wanted to try and get started in this?
Ooh.
Or like what's on your workbench right now?
Well, because we just started our break at DePaul, there's nothing on my radar for the next like 6 weeks. But when we come back, me and Jerwin and Amy are trying to pitch another show at Under the Gun. Title has yet to be determined. We want to make the musical into like a full-length, actually orchestrated thing that isn't semi-improvised because it was totally semi-improvised last time we did it. And I just submitted to be in this one show called Arts and Culture Club, and that's one of my favorite shows in the city. It's like 2 hours long, and people get to just do like whatever they want at that show, and it takes place in a different, spot every week. And Devin Middleton also runs that one, the one who gave his friend an iPad. He's a host on that show. I love Devin. Yeah, so that's honestly what's on my radar. It's mostly just chilling and doing one-off stuff for the next couple weeks.
Nice.
Well, I think you deserve a break. Okay, I lied. I have one more question. Because you mentioned this to me the other day, and we would be remiss if we don't talk about the fact that in addition to sketch and improv, you do puppetry.
I do.
Talk about this.
You do puppetry?
Do y'all want to see my puppet? I know you can't see it on the podcast.
We'll edit this part out. I want to see the puppet.
No. We'll take pictures for the show notes.
Okay, this is my puppet. Her name is Marzi. I made her, my friend Devin Asperger made like the face of her and the way that she moves, but I gave her a full body because I thought it'd be hilarious to just have her wearing like a sweatshirt and like have a little hand.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
So I bring her around the city and I do like little solo stuff with her, and she's just so freaking cute. I love her so much. Hi.
Can you give us a little quick rundown on how this puppet was made?
Yeah, so she's entirely made out of cardboard. I don't know if you can tell from, Discord. But I couldn't tell you how Devin made her because Devin was in a theater school at DePaul University and he understands the mechanics of how to like make a puppet. But I put little cotton things in her ears to make her fluffier, and I stapled, literally this is a staple, stapled the sweatshirt hood onto her ear, and then now it just like hangs down. So my arm gives the illusion that there's a body here, but I mean, there's not, obviously. And then I cut a hole into her elbow so I could slide my other hand through it and then be her free hand. This is designed kind of like Nikki from Avenue Q. I don't know if we're familiar. But she's a live hand puppet. And if this were a perfect world, there'd be somebody else operating her other hand. But she's a solo act, so I don't. And she's unlike other puppets because she doesn't have like a rod that controls her arm. It's just my hand. I watched a lot of puppetry videos before I decided to make her because I love puppets. And that's the tea.
How does puppetry kind of roll into your other acts?
So if I go around the city and I'm like, I want to do 5 minutes at your show, they'll say, what 5 minutes do you want to do? And I'll say, I have a puppet. And they'll be like, all right, do whatever you want. So what I've done a lot with her is I pre-record songs on my piano, bring a little speaker, and then play them and have her sing.
Oh, that's amazing.
When I was, like 2 quarters ago at DePaul, I wrote this 20-page long research paper on where tampons come from, like the farmers who farm cotton, where they get manufactured, all this stuff. And I found some crazy, crazy stuff about like how messed up the tampon industry is. So I synthesized that entire paper into a song that Marzi sings now.
That's amazing.
And it's a killer song. It hits every time.
Come back 2 weeks from now for episode 9, The Tampon Industry with Christian Borkey.
I am willing to talk about it for ages. Because I also I have very academic majors at DePaul University. Like they don't have to do with comedy whatsoever. So marrying the two things that I do in my free time is very thrilling to me.
That's really cool. Speaking of you singing songs, though, I think it's time for us to move into our performance showcase. I'm really excited for this. This is going to be probably our most literal performance showcase yet, because Christian is going to perform a song that she wrote for us. So Christian, why don't you, before you play, why don't you give us like a little rundown of what the context for this piece that you're about to do is?
Absolutely. So this song was written as sort of the climax to the musical that we wrote. I keep talking about it and not actually saying what it is. The musical is called Zach, Emily Lindsay, and Versace Antigone Go to Kill a Goat, an 18-day mountain musical.
I love it.
I love it.
We wrote it in 18 days. The premise of it was these 3 kids who lived in a mountain town find out that every 100 years there's an evil mountain goat who brings an avalanche and kills the entire town. And everyone in the town is just like cool with this and chill. So the 3 kids journey up the mountain to find the mountain goat and kill it. And they find out that it's not actually mountain goat up there. It is a corporation that's been systematically leveling the town for its resources every 100 years with disregard for its people that actually live there. And another twist is it's one of the kids' parents. Whoa. And so the climax of the show is reckoning with, the girl's name is Versace Antigone, which is such a rich name.
Yeah, a little bit.
Her full name is Versace Antigone Gordon Ramsay. And her parents, Matilda and Zachariah, sing a song to her saying like, join our side, like don't die with the mountain town, like we're gonna send this avalanche anyway. If you want to die, you're just gonna die with the town, and if you leave, the town will die anyway, but you can be safe. And so she has to make this big choice of, am I gonna go with my parents and be alive, or stay and stand with my friends and stand with my town and have morals and stuff. So the very end of the song, it's all the characters singing, like her friends are chiming in like, I don't want to die, and kill the mountain goat, even though it's not relevant anymore. Yeah, and her parents are singing. We thought it'd be really funny if the parents sang like an 80s power ballad, because we just wanted that to be a villainous thing.
I love it.
Yeah, and the people who were in the cast, I'd be remiss to say, if I didn't say this, writing this musical was very much not a me process. It was very collaborative with everyone in the cast. So Amy Doe wrote a bunch of these lyrics. Nikki Ramos, who played Versace Antigone, wrote her entire bridge by herself. And it was infuriating to me because I was like, you wrote something better than I've written ever. And then Jordan Cost and Eli Chapin played the parents, and they're way better singers than me. And they sang most of the song. Is that enough explanation? Did I over-explain anything?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
That was great. Thank
Chill,
you.
so-
All right, so let's hear this. We'll put the lyrics in the show notes as well, so everyone can read along.
Yeah. Okay, chill.
And as a reminder, this is a live performance. We are watching Christian Borkey stand at a piano right now. Like for our other audio episodes, we had recordings. This is live.
This is the setting the record queer first.
Yay!
Yeah. All right, let's do it.
Okay, chill. Okay. So, one of the villains has a lead-in, and he goes, yeah, we actually wrote a song about it. For centuries, this family has carried the weight of always choosing what's right. It's a cursed thing to always know best, but only us rich can fix the poor man's plight. Sure, you might have friends, and that's fun and fine, going down to their levels, compassionate, kind. But in times like this, you have to know that they are the vinegar, we are the wine. My pockets are heavy, baby, with the wails and cries of people below. My shoulders are straining, baby. This burden ain't easy to bear in stilettos, but I do it with grace, I do it with poise, and I do it with minimal noise. They scream. So keep your chin up, baby. That's the way it's always gonna be. It's tradition, baby. I did this for you, now you do this for me. There's more at stake than you could know. The world needs the resources that are below. What will you do with this thing we have built? Why are you afraid? Did we not work hard enough? Do you look at the hall of portraits with disdain? And then they start screaming Versace's name, but I can't scream or else the audio level will be weird. Versace, 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 Versace. And then I had them scream like a terrible note that would be terrible like in the show. Versace. Your pockets will be heavy, baby, with the wails and cries of your friends and your foes. Your shoulders will be straining, baby, but you'll do it with grace, you'll do it with poise, and you'll do it with minimal noise. So keep your chin up, baby. That's the way it's always gonna be. It's tradition, baby. Now carry on our legacy. Now Versace sings, my whole world is shifting lately. The truth is exhausting and the real world is cold. My parents are trying to save me. Guess it's time to go back to what I've always known. All alone. All I wanted this whole time was freedom, and I surely got what I asked for. And yeah, I admit it's been hard on my own, but I just can't slam shut this wide open door. How was I supposed to know it would come to this? It's on me to decide how it ends. And I guess that I'm finally realizing now that I'd live for my parents, but I'd die for my friends. Never had to write my own story, but this choice is greater than me. I die with the town, or the town dies anyway. Who do I betray? Your pockets will be heavy, baby. I don't wanna die, they are the vinegar. Who do I choose? Pockets will be heavy, baby. Kill the mountain goat, they are the wine. Who do I choose? And that is the song.
That was amazing. Thank you. So just for some context, if you don't look at the lyrics, but you should definitely look at the lyrics, that last part was like 5 different characters. So great job with that. So I feel like maybe this question kind of answers itself, what with like deciding between like, family and like the friends that you've made along the way, TM, but like, how does this song kind of reflect the queerness with which it was written?
So, almost entirely queer people were writing the show. And I think the angle that I was looking into with developing this and writing it was a very, taking the themes that I learned in my class called international development and putting them on a stage. But if you were to look at this from a queer lens, it's very much like your parents asking you to do traditional things and to, embody this traditional person that's not you, and to go against who you are and your own morals to be part of what they are, which is, that's not you. And I think that even though the song was written in a very, development or class or whatever angle, that's the message that I could get out of that. And it's very relatable to almost everyone in the cast and everyone on the development side of this, which is neat. Also, very musical and very 80s, which is, I'll say that's my queer identity.
That's valid. You're valid. And yeah, I would agree. I was wondering, the other thing I want to talk about this, because I frankly think that what you just did speaks for itself almost entirely. Do you have any more details about like the writing of this song that you want to share? I know you covered quite a lot before it, but if there's anything else, I want to hear it.
I would love to. So the chorus of it, the pockets will be heavy, baby, I came up with basically like the musical track of the song, like the chords, how it's gonna go, how it's structured, everything like that. But I'm terrible at writing melodies. So when I had originally pitched it, it was something different. I can't remember what it was. But Nikki Ramos, who plays Versace, was like, what if you sang it like this? And then sang it like that. And it was so much better than anything I've ever written. And a lot of the music in the show and in the specific song was written exactly like that, where someone would have an idea, and then someone has a different idea that's better. And then we all just say, okay, what if we did that? And that's kind of how it went. When Amy Doe wrote the lyrics, I changed a couple of them, like changed the structure of the chorus. And then we were like, what if we did that instead? And then we did.
It's cool to hear how it's such like a collaborative process.
And it's disingenuous for me to say that anything I do in the comedy scene is written by just me or just in a vacuum. Because even Marzi the Puppet, the song that I wrote for her about, tampons and stuff, that was a collaborative with me and my professor of actually writing the paper. The puppet was made by my coach, Devin. The music, I wrote myself. But I had to develop some of the lyrics with Eli Chapin and Amy Doe as well. Because I originally wrote it for the two of them to sing because there was another puppet in addition to Marzi, and they sang it as a duo act and I played the piano. So even things that I've now taken as a solo act were very much collaboratively done. As is most everything that I've ever done in comedy.
That's really cool.
Thank you.
I mean, just coming from kind of the perspective of, like improv and sketch comedy is like, one white dude standing on a stage telling jokes about how he hates his wife, and that's funny for some reason.
Go off!
Just seeing... and just seeing how it really is such like a collaborative and like, frankly, like queer thing. That's really cool. And that's kind of this podcast whole thing. So great. Speaking of collaboration though, why don't we move on to, okay, that segue would have worked for a different segment of the podcast. So never mind.
Listener questions.
Let's move. No, it is collaborative. We have our listeners collaborate with us to give us questions that we wouldn't have thought of.
It's okay.
So, actually, it works.
It's okay. It's okay, Alexis. It's okay.
So if you have questions for us or for any of our future guests, and we always post about who the next guest is going to be at least a couple days in advance of the episode, you can ask them to us via Twitter at STRQueercast, email settingtherecordqueer@gmail.com, or in our Setting the Record Queer community Discord at bit.ly/STRQcord. Come hang out in the Discord. It's really comfy. There's a lot of rowlets. Our first question is from Kitty in Discord, who asks, how do you get good at improv? It sometimes feels like comedians just never trip up when they're doing a bit, and it feels like it's way out of my reach.
A lot of what is formally trained, as well as, put up by me, is getting out of your own head and just trusting yourself to think on your feet and just go for something. A lot of the times, what formal training is giving you a space to say something that is not funny, or might be accidentally problematic, or finding like a space to hone your thoughts and, understand yourself more so that when you do go on a stage and you do need to improvise something, you're more comfortable and, I don't know, it's a much quicker process in your mind. So, to circle back, I would say just practicing, which is such lame advice, and I would hate to hear that advice, but it really is getting like a safe space, a safe room with people you're comfortable with, and going for it.
I mean, honestly, I think that's pretty good advice.
Thanks.
Having a space to be like confident about being wrong. That sounds like the kind of thing that's useful for comedy. I know that was helpful to me back in our days of speech and debate.
SEO 7, the ultimate safe space.
Our next question is from Violet Moon in Discord. What suggestions from the audience are you really sick of hearing?
Dildo. I'm so sick of it. I don't want to hear it. I can say something else if you need to edit that out, but...
No, that's fine.
Okay, cool. You're at an improv show and you're like, can I get a suggestion of anything at all? There's always some dude who's in the audience who thinks he's funnier than everyone else who goes, dildo! How am I supposed to make an improv set around dildo? I don't want to. Or... You know what I'm sick of? This is such a weird niche thing to be sick of, but I'm sick of food. I hate when people suggest food. I don't want to hear it. I don't know how to make an entire set out of a tangerine. Like, I will, but I don't want to. So yeah, I'm sick of those.
No dildos, no tangerines. Good to know.
I have another story. My entire team is also sick of hearing food. So we did an improv festival in New York, the Del Close Marathon. And we were like, okay, we're gonna go ask for a suggestion, and our suggestion is gonna say anything that's not a food. So I'm like, I walk out, I'm hosting, and I was like, hi audience, can we get a suggestion of anything that's not food? And then someone goes, Whole Foods. And I was like, and she was the only one to say anything. And I was like, oh man. So we did a set about Whole Foods because no one else said anything.
All right, well, let's move on to Kaylee's question of the week. Kaylee, what have you got for us this week?
Well, this week, I think we're just gonna, because improv, I think I have license to just give a complete non sequitur, and this isn't me cheating because I sat in bed for like 2 hours talking to Alexis last night going, what question works? No, this is what we're doing because it's funny. If you had a superpower with an activation cost, what would the activation cost be? Do not tell me what the superpower is. I do not care. You are kicked off the podcast. That applies to the hosts. And for those who answer this later, either on our Twitter or email or in our Discord, that also applies to you too. You will be banned.
You won't actually be banned.
You will be banned.
You won't be banned. But if you think you have a good answer to what would your superpower activation cost be, please give it to us. We always feature our favorite answer to the question of the week at the end of the episode. Also, stay tuned for this week's answer. It's really good. Anyways, my answer to this question is that every time I'd use whatever the power is, one meme would disappear from the internet and from history and from people's memories. It would be gone.
You are not allowed to take a positive for activating your superpower.
My activation cost would be every time I use it, I get a little more lactose intolerant.
That is too real of a mood. Why have you done this?
Oh wow, that's 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 a good answer. I don't want to follow that up. Mine would be that in order to activate the power, you need to physically feed a metaphor to the squirrel.
I like how the squirrel's also involved. It's not a squirrel, it's the squirrel.
It's the squirrel.
So is the squirrel part of your superhero duo?
You do not get to ask questions
if
about
she
the
tells
power
you,
or the
then
costume
you're
or
banned.
everything.
Okay, fair
She'll
enough.
be banned if she tells you.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't want to be banned from my own podcast.
Fair enough. All right, I think that's just about everything we have for the episode. So once again, give us your answer to Kaylee's question of the week. We'll feature a great one at the end of the next episode for that question. And stay tuned for the really good one this week. Christian.
Yay!
Where can people find you and your work and all of the things that you do?
So on Twitter and Instagram, I don't post a lot of what I do, but my social media handles are at BORQUIQUI. I made them when I was 13. Borkui. I made them when I was 13. And honestly, if you want to friend me on Facebook, that's where I share most of my things, and I love new friends. So you can honestly friend me on Facebook at Christian Borkey. There's a German guy whose name is also Christian Borkey and has 2 dots over his O. So don't friend him unless you want to. But I'm the only other one on Facebook, so.
Good to know. I'm glad I didn't accidentally get that one.
He probably would have said yes, because he said yes to me.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for coming on, Christian. This episode has been absolutely hilarious.
Yay!
Which is, kind of what we were expecting, but it's still really, really good. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can support us on Patreon. We'd really, 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 really appreciate it. That's at patreon.com/settingtherecordqueer. Patrons can get early guest reveals, access to a special Discord channel, high quality episode downloads, early episode releases, or even special thanks on the podcast, depending on, what patron tier you are at. However, you don't have to support us with money. It's really okay. If you want to support us, but, don't want to put in the money, don't have the money, it's fine. It's fine. I promise it's fine. Here are some other things that you can do that would be helpful to us. If you enjoyed this podcast, leave a like on whatever, page you follow us on. Leave a review on your podcast platform. That one's huge. Reviews are like a big part of like how podcasts get like charted and ranked and promoted. Tell a friend or talk about us on social media. If you want to talk about us on Twitter, our handle is at STRQueercast. Also, if you have feedback, questions for us or our guests, if you have a good idea for who or what could be on this podcast, or you think you would be good to be on this podcast, like I said, Twitter at STRQueercast, email settingtherecordqueer@gmail.com, or come join our community Discord where you can hang out with us hosts, a bunch of our listeners, and even some of our guests and production staff who have graced us with their presence. That's at bit.ly/STRQcord. Our logo was made by Cubotic. That's at QBTIC on Twitter, or Cobot, QOBOT.tumblr.com. Our theme music was made by Thrill Me Music, and you can find more information about her work at thrillmemusic.squarespace.com. The other day, Kaylee and I were having a conversation about how good our theme music is, so definitely go check out Thrill Me's other work. It's all really good. This podcast was edited by Kaylee and produced by yours truly, Alexis. Kaylee, where can our listeners find you?
People can find me at Twitch at witches_hex. That's WITCHS hex. Or on Twitter without the underscore.
And you can find me on Twitch and YouTube as Proto Magical Girl, or Twitch at proto.ml in your browser bar, or on Instagram and Twitter as Princess Proto. And come hang out with us in our Discord. That's a really easy way to find us as well. Our favorite answer to last week's Kaylee's question of the week, which was, if you could take one game's soundtrack and put it into another game, what game would go where? And this answer comes from Dijon Ketchup in Discord, who said, I would take the soundtrack from Banjo-Kazooie and put it in Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye.